Hi, I'm Dave Anderson, and I want to talk about externalities, which are those effects felt beyond or external to those causing them. If you throw a party and the noise bothers your neighbors, that's an externality because it's being felt beyond those people who made the decision to throw the party. You might have seen my video on solutions to externalities, but I want to talk about causes of externalities because there's been evolution in the econ world in regard to how much attention is paid to whether it's a production externality or a consumption externality. Particularly if you're taking the AP Econ test, you want to pay attention to this. You can have a positive production externality, which is like if you're creating donuts. If the bakery down the street makes a batch of donuts, oh, the air is filled with the most wonderful aromas. And that creates a marginal external benefit. That's the benefit per batch of donuts that the rest of us feel, even if we're not making or buying donuts. The value of that marginal external benefit from the positive production externality can be subtracted from the marginal private cost to get the marginal social cost, right? If this is the marginal external benefit per batch of donuts, we shift the marginal private cost down by that amount. Maybe it's $1 per batch of donuts. In that case, this is the cost to society per batch of donuts. Here is the marginal private benefit, which is the additional benefit per batch of donuts to society. And the optimal quantity of donuts for society is here at the intersection of the marginal social cost and this line, which is both the marginal private benefit and the marginal social benefit. So here's the socially optimal quantity. Here's the privately optimal quantity that will be produced if those externalities are not internalized. If we have a positive externality, but it's a consumption externality, like when you get a vaccination, that vaccination is going to provide benefits to other people because they're not going to get the disease from you. If it's a positive consumption externality, we want to add to the height of the marginal private benefit curve the size of that marginal external benefit. And that gives us a marginal social benefit curve up here. The socially optimal quantity is at the intersection of the marginal social benefit and this line, which is both the marginal private cost and the marginal social cost. So this is the socially optimal quantity, and the private market underproduces the vaccines, just like the private market underproduces donuts, in that the privately optimal quantity is less than the socially optimal quantity. Now let's look at negative externalities, like t-shirts. The manufacture of t-shirts creates negative externalities because they're made of cotton, which is a very chemical-intensive agricultural product. They're also made using dyes and other chemicals and other processes and transportation, all of which cause some pollution. So there is a marginal external cost for each t-shirt that we can add to the marginal private cost to get the marginal social cost. This intersection of the marginal social cost and this line, which is both the marginal private benefit and the marginal social benefit, indicates the socially optimal quantity, which is less than the privately optimal quantity. The market overproduces t-shirts because we don't internalize or feel ourselves the costs that we're imposing on others. Likewise, we can have a negative consumption externality, as with cigarettes. When people smoke cigarettes, they have their marginal private benefit and their marginal private cost, which determine the privately optimal quantity, but that smoking can bother other people or even sicken other people. And so the marginal social benefit is under the marginal private benefit by the amount of that marginal external cost. So we shift the marginal private benefit curve down by the amount of the marginal external cost, and this intersection tells us the socially optimal quantity. And again, the private market overproduces this good, which has a negative consumption externality. So that's how you can incorporate both whether an externality is positive or negative, and whether it comes from the production process or the consumption of that good or service. Best wishes to you in all things economic.